Hello and welcome to Blackmans Bay Studios. My name's Mick and this is my old mate Keith. And Keith, variation on the theme, don't you think?
It is a variation a little bit, but we're going to do a series of minisodes, and I put it on the Facebook page of the Cray's Past and Present, which is really where this little bit, you know, sort of kicking off a little bit. So we're just going to do some little profiles of some people and some families, and where better to start, Mick, than one of the most famous people in the Cray, eh? You know? He is. I mean, we're going to kick off with Barry Wheeler, Big Bad Baz. We just got a few little stories. Look, everyone's got a story about Barry, but these are sort of just a couple of our recollections of him. So, Mick, let's. When did you first meet Barry Wheeler, man?
Well, I was thinking this week, and he really was a remarkable man in that he's the only man, woman or anyone who I can specifically remember the first time I laid eyes on him. And
Same as me, yeah.
And the first time that I ever met him. The first time I ever laid eyes on him, it was around the end of the 1950s, and beginning of the 60s, and we used to get a lot of bad floods, didn't we?
Mm.
And me and the bloke who lived opposite me, a bloke named Dave Hawkes, we were walking up Chorleywood, and we walked through the gap between the houses that goes into Wheatland, and walked up the steep bank, and there's a natural bowl in the land that had filled up with water. It was a nice day, I'll never forget that, and there was loads of kids sitting around the top of this bowl, and when we got up the top there was a fallen down tree, big log, and there was this bloke, bare-chested,
of course,
shouting at the top of his voice, teaching people how to swim and how to dive. And I turned around to Dave Hawkes and I said, "Who's that bloke down there?" He said, "Oh, that's Barry Wheeler." Now, I've been thinking, I reckon Barry would have been about 13 then.
Yeah.
So that's the first time I ever laid eyes on him. The first time I actually met him was, me and Dave Hawkes was round Cockmandine again, and we started walking back home. And as we was walking away from Cockmandine, I heard, "Oi, Hawksy!" and turned round, and up on this little concrete ledge on the access to the flats above the shops was this bloke standing there. I recognised who it was straight away. And
we got a picture of that.
Yeah.
We got a photo of that. I'll flash it up.
Now, I was looking at him and thinking, how the fuck did he get up there? And I was looking at him a bit like, you know, cross-eyed, I suppose. And Barry looked at me and he went, "Who's he then?" And Dave said, "Oh, this is Mick." And he went, "All right." And I went, "Yeah, all right, Barry," and walked away. And as I was walking away, I said to Dave Hawkes, "How did he get up there?" And he said, "I've no idea." And,
well, you can see by the photo there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. And
yeah.
What's that little blue thing I can see, Keith?
Ah, interesting. All over the Cray, what you'll find these days is, you know, the old blue plaques, you know, John Lennon lived here, or, you know, Ned Kelly lived here, whatever they are, you know. You've got these plaques over there. Now I'll just show you this one.
Oh yeah.
What do you reckon of that?
Oh yes. Yes.
These might crop up in as we go along.
We'll have to look out for them.
Yeah. Look, my first memory of Barry was we were playing football up at Wheatland, just the pitch right close to the old people's home, and was before the old people's home was built. Used to have a chain link fence, and we were all playing away, and the ball went over the chain link fence out onto the road, and the bloke was walking down the road, and Barry said to him, he said, "Oh mate, kick the ball back to us, will you?" And this bloke said, "Ah, fuck off and get your own ball, you know, prat," like that. Barry, in one movement, typical Barry fashion, what's the first thing he does? Shirt off. He's clambered over the fence. Looks like a couple of strides. He's gone up to this geezer and given him a thump. Got the ball and came back. That's the first time I ever saw Barry. Yeah, and there's another blue plaque there, Mick.
Yeah. Oh, right.
You know, you got to spot them, don't you?
Yeah. Keep your eyes out for them.
Yeah. And I've got to say, you know, with Barry in his shirt off, you know, I'm sure he was the one who invented Velcro, you know, for those Chippendales, whoever they are, because nobody could get a shirt off quicker than him, could he? You know, right? Let's have it right. What? It's a couple of funny things. Was you at his wedding at the Sea Cadet or Mick?
No, I won't.
Well, I was there, and they're having a good night, you know, something like that. And all of a sudden, Barry, shirt off, is having a fight with his cousin. You know, and it's all gone on. Next thing you know, they're standing at the bar having a drink, like nothing's happened. You know?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Classic Wheeler.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of Barry's family, it's a bit confused, wasn't it? Because when we was living with Barry and Rita, we used to get his uncle Jim coming round. You know, Jim of the bike.
Yeah. Was it his uncle?
Well, I could never fathom Jim out because he never ever spoke to me. I don't know if he didn't like me or if he was ain't me short. I don't know. But the door, it'd be a knock at the door, and I'd open the door, and he'd come marching in. Always had a pint of milk for some reason. I don't know why. And I'd say, "Hello, Jim. All right?" No answer. I'd go straight in the kitchen, only in the kitchen, and then Barry would go out there, and I don't think I ever heard that man speak. Anyway, the upshot of this is, I said to Barry about Uncle Jim once, and he said, he said, it's a little bit more complicated than that. And I said, oh yeah, why is that? He said, Jim actually is my brother. I said, oh right, okay. Then he started telling me that his granddad was really his dad, and it was got so complicated he lost me, so I don't know what happened at that family.
Oh, it's, you know, I think it's absolutely incredible. You know, we mentioned in one of our previous videos, Mick, about all the lads at the Partridge, about his very famous tackle. You know, where we were playing with Cray United up at Oblingwell, and there was a mud everywhere. It was pissing down the rain, and Barry went in and did this big sliding tackle. You know, sorry if you've heard this story before. He's come sliding in and clumped this bloke, and right by where the opposing teams, all their wives and girlfriends were, you know, the wags.
Yeah.
You know, right into there, and he stood up and he's gone. It's right in front of these girls. He's gone, oh, I've got mud up me arse, I've got mud up me bollocks, in me foreskin. He's.
Yeah, those girls just couldn't.
Oh,
they were just flabbergasted, weren't they?
I think the blokes was flabbergasted about the girls.
Yeah. What about? Because Barry was a pretty good dart player, wasn't he, Keith?
Yes.
And he played for the Partridge. He was a very good dart player.
I've got a good story about Barry with his darts later afterwards, but
yeah. But first things I'd like to say about Barry's darts is that some of the things he used to come out with at the darts, I mean, crude, yes, but
embarrassing, yes.
Unique to Wheeler, definitely. And the one I remember was he wasn't playing particularly well this night, and he wanted double eight. Now Barry was good for a double eight, wasn't he?
Yeah,
I mean, he was a good player.
He was good.
And he went up and he went bang, 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 didn't hit it. And he went, do you know what? The way I'm playing tonight, I couldn't hit a with a banjo.
Well,
there was a stunned silence. The opposition, the jaws dropped.
Yeah.
And I must admit, we was laughing, you know, because, you know, we'd heard these sort of things before.
We was playing in a game again in the Partridge, and he wanted double one. If you remember at the time, Barry used to play number 8, and he's gone up, and we've had almost a complete round. Everybody trying to hit this double one, nobody could get it. Barry walks up, and he takes a long look at it because he was actually quite a quick player in his way. He stood there and stood there and stood there, and all of a sudden he threw. He went straight in the middle of the double one. He turned, and his missus is sitting there, right? And he's gone, do you know, he said, I looked at that double one, so it was as big as my old woman's. He said, I knew I couldn't miss it.
Naturally, you'll beat them out, won't you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there was another occasion, he walks in the Partridge, packed out, you know, about 10 to 9, just before the game's going to start. And he came in a bit late because he was normally in there early, you know. And he come in with this bird, He said, I got me salt with me. He said, sorry I'm a bit late. He said, but she was standing outside my place, rubbing her box up against the lamppost.
I'll tell you a funny story about her. Barry started bringing, like Keith said, started bringing this girl. He's married to Rita at the time. Started bringing this girl to darts, and she was draping herself all over him. He was giving it large. He loved it, didn't he? Well, I said to him, have you ever heard of that term, don't shit on your own doorstep? And he went, Mick, I'll tell you something. He said, when I was married to Pat, that's his first wife, he said, I met this bird and I took her over to Clacton to Blackmans. He said, I'm sitting in the bar having a drink with her, and in walks some of Pat's relatives. He said, so if I'm going to get caught in Clacton, I might as well get caught in St Paul's Cray. So, oh, all right, Barry. Anyway, one night, Trevor Johnson came in, and he offered Barry a lift home. And Barry said, yeah, we'll have to drop whatever her name is off first. And Trevor went, yeah, okay, fine. So anyway, a couple of days later, Trevor come back in a partridge. He said, what do you reckon of that fucking Wheeler? So said, what? He said, I'll give him a lift home. And he said, went up to this bird's house. I think she lived up the top of St Paul's Hill somewhere. He said, and Barry got out. He said, I thought he'd go up to the front door, a little kiss and a cuddle, and then get back in the car. But he went inside. He said, there I am, sitting outside like a fucking cab driver while he's banging this bird inside. Classic Wheeler again, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, I know. He, we said about he's getting his shirt off. I was walking down, I was going down a partridge one Saturday night it was, and because I lived at Breakspears, just around the corner from the Sanderson Hall there. Got a picture of it there, look.
Yeah.
And Barry's in the street, shirt off, of course.
Naturally.
Having a row with somebody. But the funny thing was, this is even before the event started. It was 6:30 at night. He hadn't even had a drink. Mind you, you get some people that get very aggressive when they drink. Barry was completely the other way.
Exactly the opposite.
He was you always knew when Barry was pissed because he'd start putting his arm around you and kissing, cuddling you. Didn't he?
Yeah.
You never ever saw him angry at all when he was sober. Oh yeah, you could get sober. Not when he's had a drink.
No. Another thing I remember about Barry was down the Footscray Club, and we was down there one Saturday night. There was you, me, Kenny Osborne, the Rickwoods, I think Mickey Johnson was there, and Barry Wheeler. And we were standing by this table, and there was a girl sitting on the table. Now don't say her name, alright? And I think it's fair to say she was very generous with her favours, alright? And she's sitting with her mother. And the conversation must have got round to the bloke us lot standing there, and her mother said out loud, I don't know why you associate with that lot, they're just a load of trash. And we all heard it, and Barry in particular, and he leant over the table, put his hands between two people, put his hands on the table, and he said to the mother, now listen here missus, your daughter's had more pricks than a second-hand dartboard, and you call us trash. And she shut up after that, but God dear.
Something to say to her mother, isn't it?
Yeah.
Talking to the club, Footscray Club, we were playing a dart match down there. Remember the old days we used to play 8-a-side, 1001, and we played the last game of the season down there, don't know if you remember it, and Barry wanted a score in the 300s, and I was playing number 1 for the team at the time. Anyway, Barry, we used to get a pint for a
ton.
Yeah, pint for a ton. Anyway, Barry's gone up and he's gone bosh, bosh, bosh. Oh, he's thrown the first 2 darts and then stood there. See, it's unusual. It's a rhythm game, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's hit another number, and he's left 170. and he never said anything. Anyway, I bloody thrown. I went up there and I went 60-60 bullseye, which is the first time it had ever been done in the, I think it was the Whitbread League we was playing. The first time it had ever been seen in the Whitbread League. And of course the place erupted. But what was funny was that actually won us the league, and Cray were running second at the time. So it was a bit uproar in the club. Next thing you know, Barry's pissed us off. He's coming round grabbing hold of me. He said, I bet you was wondering why I paused, didn't you? He said, I knew I was going to leave that 170. He said, I knew you was going to hit it. I love you, Keith. He's giving me all loads like that. Oh. All cuddles and smiles.
Yeah.
You know, okay. Because you actually lived, didn't you, Mick, with Barry?
Yeah, Barry and Rita.
Back in the day, yeah.
And there's a lot of stories to tell about living with Barry and Rita. It was.
This is before you decided to get married, isn't it?
Well, I'll fill you in on that.
Right.
Me and Sandy decided to get married, right? And
yeah, go on.
yes, we did. We decided to get married, and I happened to be walking up Cocklandine, and I walked past the betting shop, and I turned around. It's Barry coming out of the betting shop, and in the course of the conversation, said, "Oh, by the way, me and Sandy are getting married. Of course, you're invited. You know, seek it at all, of course."
Where else?
Yeah. So he said, "Hey, have you got somewhere to live?" Now, prior to this, me and Sandy had been looking at some houses, and it had dawned on us that we couldn't really afford a mortgage. So we didn't really have anywhere to live. So I said, "Well, no, as a matter of fact, no, we haven't." He said, "Well, you can come and live with me and Rita." Now, I'm not a fool. I know he was looking to Harvey's rent and Harvey's electric and all that.
Yeah.
So which is fair enough. So, and I know that Rita and Sandy were good friends, and Sandy has always loved Barry anyway. So I said, yeah, okay. So we moved in, and there's one particular story that I want to tell you about. And before I start, anybody that gets upset about what I'm going to tell them, tough, right? Because I know that the fault about this dog that I'm going to tell you about is the owner's fault, right? So anybody that writes in outraged at this story, I'm going to make a point.
Put comments on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm going to make a point of ignoring them. Okay?
Well, you ain't on Facebook.
So anyway, prior to us moving in,
yeah.
Rita gave Barry an ultimatum. I want a baby or I want a dog. Right? So they got a dog. It was all black. It was a cross mongrel, jet black, named Blackie. Now this was, I would say this was 9 months to a year before we moved in. So by the time we moved in, the dog was about 2 foot high, and it was completely mental. Now the reason it was is because Barry and Rita worked all day.
Yeah.
She used to lock it in the kitchen and turn the radio on to give it company. So you can imagine the dog was out of its head. So we unwittingly moved in, and this dog would eat anything that it couldn't reach, anything, destroy anything. When Rita wasn't there, it kept a bit of a low profile if Barry was there. You can guess why. But when Rita come home, you could not touch her baby. And so it used to go crazy, absolutely crazy. And one night, we sat down to watch my most favourite programme of the day, Kojak. And it started, and Rita said, want a cup of tea? Say, oh yes please. So Rita went out to make a cup of tea, and the dog trotted out after her. A couple of minutes later, the dog came in. Now it's me and Sandy sitting on the settee, and Barry's sitting in the armchair to the left, watching Kojak as well. The dog came in, stood in front of me. It did this funny manoeuvre where its back leg stayed where it was. It walked forward a bit, so its back arched, and it did this big piss on the carpet right in front of me. And it was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I just booted it up the arse, and its arse literally went over its head, I tell you. And Barry went, oh, he said, if Rita saw you do that, she'd run you through with a carving knife, which was probably true. But that was one of the stories of living with Barry and Rita. So we're coming to an end now, Keith, haven't we?
Yes.
We've cut it right down because it is a mini-sode. There's a postscript. I'd like to tell you a story about a bloke named Trevor Hall. Now, Trevor Hall works in the legal profession, doesn't he? And I asked him a long time ago if he wouldn't mind giving me a bit of legal advice, and he said, yeah, sure, no problem. So what he said, you come over to my house Saturday morning, and we'll have a bit of peace and privacy there, and do it then. So I went over, it shows you how long ago, it was over by the Bexley Nut House, so it shows you how long it was ago, because he's been living in Orpington for donkey's years.
Yeah.
So I went over there, we got the business out of the way, and then Gloria made a cup of tea, and we sat down, we was just chatting. And then Trevor said to me, have you seen anything of Barry? And I said, oh yeah, of course. And started talking about Blackie the dog, you know, and things, other things, loads of other stories. And Trevor, he started laughing, and then he started laughing some more, and then laughing on top of the laugh. And in the end, he was crouching over, and then all of a sudden he jumped up and he said, Mick, I've got to go out in the kitchen. And I was a bit shocked, and he went out in the kitchen and he was literally screeching with laughter. Screeching! I've never heard the likes of it before or since. And I looked round at Gloria and she was laughing as well, but she just went like that. And I think that is a perfect example of the Wheeler effect.
The Barry Wheeler effect.
Yeah, so,
alright.
So I think on that note, I think that'll be it for this time, don't you, Keith?
Yes, that's it. Watch out, because we've got a few more of these little mini-sodes coming up.
So I hope you enjoyed it.
Specially made for the Cray's Past and Present Facebook group.
Yeah. Thank you and goodbye.
See you later. Bye.
This has been a Blackmans Bay studio production.